Hello everyone and welcome back. Today we're talking about one of my favorite shows in television history, Top Boy on Netflix. I've never been more excited for a series finale, just honestly in a very long time. So renamed Top Boy Summer House, the original 2-season 4-episode series first aired in the UK before it was unceremoniously cancelled. According to the creator, Channel 4's cancellation of the crime drama felt like a slap in the face to the community it represented. Fast forward years later, Canadian artist and rapper Drake took an interest in the show and revived it for Netflix. And increased budget and cinematography basically has made Top Boy one of the most compelling shows, just currently airing on TV right now. So Top Boy Netflix continues off from where the previous seasons left off, which is following Dushane and Sully as they work to expand their drug empire, not just in Summer House, but worldwide. In season 1, we are introduced to Sully, Dushane, as well as the world of Summer House, this neglected, over-policed housing project. The series begins in the middle of the action when Dushane and Sully's crew are robbed at gunpoint, and this series of attacks pretty much triggers Dushane's journey to become Top Boy. Much of the series is focused on Dushane's constant need to maintain power over Summer House and his increasingly deteriorating relationship with Sully. A running theme throughout the show is loyalty, specifically how much longer can Dushane remain loyal to Sully? And despite being partners, Dushane has always felt like the one in charge, the person that's more level-headed. As the series has gone on, it's very clear that many of Sully's grievances were not unwarranted. So starting with Dushane, right from the start, it was clear that Dushane had aspirations outside of Summer House. He constantly manages to bypass middlemen to form his own relationship to different suppliers. So the higher up Dushane moves, the more violent his world becomes. Neither Dushane and Sully are natural-born killers. Their first murders are very chaotic, very messy. However, Sully and Dushane's ability to kill with ease greatly improves, and this allows them to take matters into their own hands, right? Like this allows them to take more control over things. And so a huge problem with Dushane and Sully's relationship is their inability to kind of make decisions together. So increasingly they've grown apart, and the only time they really come together is when things have gone horribly wrong, right? Like they can't seem to coordinate to stop the horrible things from happening before they happen. And so in season 1, Dushane makes the decision to kill their supplier Bobby, and this comes as a surprise to Sully. And Dushane's logic is that, he was going to kill you. He made it seem like it was for Sully's best interest, and Sully never really feels all that indebted to Dushane because he doesn't feel that Dushane's actions towards him are entirely altruistic. And so the disconnect between Dushane and Sully reaches a breaking point last season when Sully kills Jamie, just out of nowhere, right? It was a very messy kill. It was disorganized. And this kill, on top of the sort of rising tensions between them, threatens to unravel everything that they had built together. Some background on the two men. Despite growing up in the same neighborhood, they couldn't be further apart. From what we know of Sully, his mother was a drug addict, and it seems like Dushane's family kind of took him in. And Dushane and Sully feel like more like brothers, right? So Dushane has a very close bond to his mother, and he has a brother that's very successful, but he's not that close to him because he almost got his brother killed, right? His brother ended up being, mutilated for Dushane's actions. And from what we know of Dushane's father, we do get a glimpse into that. His father left his mother for another family, right? To start another family. And in terms of their personal lives, Sully has a small daughter that he's not that close to, but he watches over to make sure that she has everything she needs. And in terms of Dushane, the closest that we get to a personal life is this relationship that he's been building with Shelly. I don't know about their chemistry. Y'all let me know what you think. Like there's just something awkward about it. But I think the purpose of her relationship is to show that he's someone that can care about people outside of himself. Right? Like towards the end of last season, Dushane was mourning his mother. And the death of his mother basically allows him to maybe recognize that his rise has basically caused a lot of people's demise, right? We're starting to see Dushane kind of open up and maybe consider the well-being of others. As the series has gone on, Dushane and Sully, they're not really partners, right? They stay loyal to each other, but they start to spend more and more time apart, right? Like they start to develop their own little worlds and their own little lives. Really appreciate how they give Sully a personality outside of Dushane. First introduced to Sully, I really didn't like him. I thought initially he was annoying, he was a hothead. I really didn't like the way he talked to Leon. But over time, he's really grown on me and I really enjoyed his presence. When he's around Dushane, he seems like a loose cannon, but when he's alone, you know, we get a chance to get Sully's point of view, right? I think the show does a good job of putting us in Sully's shoes and maybe getting us to understand where he's coming from. When he leaves Dushane, he partners up with a man named Mike, a former convict whom Sully constantly has to keep in check. And I think the reason he likes Mike is they feel like partners. So the problem with Dushane is that he doesn't really hear him out. Sully has basically voiced his concerns time and time again. He told him that he didn't really trust Lizzie. He told him about Jamie, but Dushane kind of brushed him off. Sully is the type of person that likes to nip things in the bud. Like he doesn't like to wait until things escalate, whereas Dushane kind of tries to play mastermind, and sometimes that backfires. Be a little too smart for your own good. So Mike's death leaves Sully with mixed reactions. So Dushane justified killing Sully's friend by basically saying, listen, you caused all this chaos, and I only had enough capital to save you. I can save your raggedy friend, Mike. And basically what he was saying is like, listen, if you step outside this relationship, you're risking everybody around you, right? Like he tries to get Sully back under him, but Sully continuously resists to try and set up his own thing. So besides Michael, the closest relationship that Sully has had is to this young man named Jason. Jason, like Sully, came from a very broken home. Sully becomes very protective over him. He becomes almost a father figure, right? He looks out for him. He tries to coach him. He tries to mentor him. He literally went into a burning building to try and save his friend. So watching Jason die horrifically just greatly traumatized Sully, and I think this showcased his humanity, right? Sully is someone who will ride or die for the people that he cares about, even if they are raggedy. Case in point, Pebbles. Like Pebbles next to Curtis, like Pebbles was one of the craziest, most annoying characters I have seen in a long time. Like I couldn't believe this woman. So Pebbles is a close family friend of Sully's, and she approaches him when she basically bites off more than she can chew. Sully, despite his better judgments, decides to help Pebbles out, even though he knows she deserves it, even though he thinks he knows that she's an idiot. He still tries to help her, right? He still tries to go out of his way to do what he can for her, and this almost gets him killed. He ends up being barely saved by Dushane. And the whole point of Pebbles' character, I think, was to basically showcase how important family is to Sully. Like he is someone who's loyal. Like he doesn't cut people off easily, even if they deserve it. Right, but the man has limits. And I think the issue that Sully has with Dushane is Dushane doesn't trust Sully's judgment, right? He constantly conceals information from him. He constantly hides things from him. He constantly he doesn't really tell him everything. He doesn't treat him like a partner. And the biggest sort of secret that he concealed from him is that Lauren nearly killed him. So a reoccurring storyline throughout the series is this relationship between Jack and Lauren. So Jack is a very loyal character, right? She is someone that has shown time and time again that she can be depended on. And so things go wrong for Jack when her sister ended up sweet-talking a lover that just so happened to be her rival. And as a result of Lauren's talking, Sully almost got killed. Jack basically approaches Dushane and says, listen, my sister messed up. Please let her go. Like, I know that she didn't mean, like, what she did wasn't malicious, right? It wasn't like what Driss did in previous seasons, which is cut them off because he felt kind of petty, right? Like he was just feeling underappreciated. In terms of Lauren, she was just insecure. She was scared. She didn't know what to do. His decision to let Lauren go would come back to bite him because Lauren basically causes more trouble outside the neighborhood than she was causing inside the neighborhood when she gets into a relationship with a man named Curtis. And Curtis is one of the most unsettling, terrifying figures I have ever seen. Like, he's why they built prisons. Like, this whole thing about, is there a reason you're not calling me by my name? Yes, sir, because I never want to see you again. Like, his whole vibe, like, I think they cast him based on that. Like, he was such a scene stealer. You know, I could have watched a whole, like, separate series on gun running. So Curtis is this arms dealer that she gets involved with. And he is just insane, right? She's pregnant and she does not want to have this baby in this house. And so she pleads to Jack to let her come back to Summer House. And so Jack basically doesn't know what to do, right? She's desperate. She wants to save her sister. And Dushane is like, what can I do? I don't think the situation would have been as bad if Dushane basically told Sully. Like, whether or not Sully would have killed Lauren, I seriously doubt it. You know, and either way, he should have given him that benefit of the doubt. Like, Lauren's an idiot, but, you know, given the level of stupidity, like, he sees pebbles. Like, he might have let Lauren go, you know what I mean? Like, he could have just given her that. And so Jack basically takes it upon herself to tell Sully about Lauren. And I think what really made Sully angry is that Dushane didn't tell him. And again, it was just another sign that Dushane just didn't see him as an equal. That his brother doesn't bother to tell him this, but Jack did. And Jack is an interesting character because she's the reason that Sully, like, has been saved a few times, right? She comes to his defense quite a bit. Like, as far as Jack is concerned, Sully is family, and regardless of what he does, they need to look out for him. So she answers to Dushane, but she very much respects Sully. And so this whole situation with Lauren and Jack, again, it was just like one of the many things that was starting to really unravel Sully. Like, again, he's dealing with PTSD. I think he's still mourning the fact that he shot his friend Driss. On top of that, he finds out that Lauren's talking nearly killed him. And so Dushane is kind of making all these decisions without him. And I think some part of Sully was like, well, I guess I can make a decision on my own. Unfortunately, that decision was to kill Jamie. So Jamie is a fantastic character. I really will miss him. He was just a pleasure to watch on screen, charismatic, good looking, but like Dushane, he has ambitions, right? Like, he's a very, very ambitious character. And so a little background on Jamie. After his parents died, he became responsible for taking care of his two brothers. And Jamie's not someone that came from a broken household. He was forced into the drug trade to take care of his brothers, and he never really holds it against them. They never talk about what he does. He just supports them. You know, he never really holds it over their heads, and I think that's very telling about his character. And this show spends a great deal of time building their relationship, showing us how close they all are. So besides his relationship to his brothers, the only other person he's close to is his friend Kit. And before Dushane and Sully's arrival, it was clear that, you know, Jamie was very close to becoming top boy. You know, his boss had been incarcerated and he took it upon himself to basically lead the way. Jamie is a natural born leader. Things took a dark turn when his raggedy boss, Modi, breaks out of jail and basically for some reason decides to come back to run things in Summer House despite the entire state looking for him. Like, Modi's character was such a joke. Like, I really couldn't take him seriously. I'm like, is this guy crazy? He should be like halfway to Jamaica. Like, that scene when he goes to the doctor's office and he drives himself around complaining about traffic. I was like, listen, you are leader of a gang that's like barely in charge. You have no right to be out here like this. I mean, no wonder you went to jail. So after Moody's very, very timely death, Jamie essentially becomes his successor. And the war that he has with Dushane, for me, highlighted how out of depth Jamie was. Like, he's good, but he stand a chance against Dushane. Jamie's biggest weakness is that he second guesses himself, right? We saw it in Morocco when he overstayed his welcome and gravely underestimated the Spanish. And we saw it again when he killed his best friend Kit. Jamie, when you compare him to someone like Dushane, Dushane is in charge. Like, Jamie does a great job of sort of, you know, he has great instincts. He forms a relationship to this woman named Lizzie. He manages to get a supplier. Like, he's able to move quickly. But this relationship he had with Lizzie was really telling because it always felt like he worked under Lizzie it never really felt like Jamie was in charge. Whereas with Dushane, he made it clear, he's like, I don't trust you, Lizzie. I don't like you. I know you raggedy. Like, he pushed her out of the way. And again, Lizzie has shown time and time again that she cannot be trusted, and yet Jamie allows her to get inside his head. One of the most telling scenes is when she basically assumes all these horrible things about his life, right? She can't imagine that Jamie came from a stable household, or that, you know, his situation wasn't, although it's not ideal, nowhere near what she suspected. Lizzie was basically saying how his father must have left his mother, leaving him with nothing, like just basically assuming all these things about his life. Now, in terms of Dushane's sort of trust in Jamie, it's incredibly misguided. Like, the idea that Jamie was ever going to be his retirement plan just never really made any sense. Like, Jamie has shown that if given the opportunity, he was going to take Dushane out, right? And I think what was disturbing about the way that Dushane did it is, first, he involved the police. So even Sully was disgusted. He's like, listen, the way you did this thing, it just wasn't even right. And to make it worse, you didn't even really commit to it. Do it. But the thought of having gone through all this trouble only to recruit Jamie, it just kind of rubbed everyone the wrong way. And I thought Dushane's sort of, you know, ultimatums to Jamie were just becoming a bit much. He basically says, in order to gain my trust, you have to kill Kit. And the reason for that is what happened to Ats. And what Dushane did to this young boy was really horrible, right? Like, his crew essentially set up this young boy to set up his friend. What Dushane did to Atticus was quite horrible, right? So Atticus is a young boy who was under extreme duress because his mother was being deported and he was trying to find a way to help her. So he decides to join Dushane's gang. When Dushane's gang finds out that Ats is Stefan's brother, like that Ats is close to Jamie's brother, they manipulate the situation and create a scenario. And this decision ended up getting Ats killed. And so Dushane has all this guilt about this young boy's death, but it's like, you're the reason this kid is dead, right? Like, it doesn't really matter what Kid did. It doesn't really matter what Jamie, like, did or didn't do, but this is on you. And I initially, when he made the offer to Jamie to kill Kit, I thought it was a test, because it's like, what kind of person would kill his best friend, right? Like, if anybody, like, if the tables were turned, there's no way that Dushane would ever kill Sully, or so we think, right? We're gonna have to find out in the next season. And so Jamie's instinct not to kill Kit was actually the correct one. He knows what Kit what was wrong. He confronted him, but Kit is still his family, right? This is his partner. So his initial instinct to pack up and leave town was the correct thing to do. And had he done that, there would be no one home to kill him, right? Like, again, he has good instincts. He knew, like, okay, well, I guess this is over. Like, we gotta hit the hay. Like, it's time to get out of town. And in the end, the reason that Jamie kills Kit is because he doesn't want to destabilize his brothers. Jamie has kind of put himself in such a situation that now it's affecting his brothers. Aaron can just drop out of school, and Steph is lost, right? Steph doesn't know what to do. He's all over the place. Like, he just couldn't bring himself to that point. And so Jamie's death was really just shocking because it clearly wasn't planned. And we know just by, like, just the way it went down, Sully clearly didn't have permission. Dushane's decision to keep Jamie around basically was the nail in that coffin, right? Like, his relationship to Sully was already tenuous, but this is even worse. And I think Sully felt that, you know, you keep undermining me. You don't tell me about Lauren. Oh, we've gone through all these things together, and now you're playing games with Jamie. Sully saw firsthand what kind of person Jamie was when they traveled, right? He saw what he tried to do with the Spanish supplier. He knows that Jamie is a snake, and this is something that he's tried to articulate to Dushane many times. And this whole thing about building an empire, right? Like, for him, Jamie's presence or continued presence just proves that Dushane's sort of only thinking about his own well-being. Jamie's presence in their group does not align, right? And he tells him that. He's like, this doesn't match, right? Like, what you're doing right now is not okay. And so Dushane's decision to keep Jamie alive, despite knowing that he was playing games overseas, despite knowing that, you know, I mean, to avoid a 20-year jail sentence, I mean, you would have said anything. I think it left Sully no choice. And the fact that Dushane could not see how unstable Sully was and how just unhinged he was becoming, it says a lot, right? I mean, that death was messy. It was a disaster. The fact that he just shot him in his own home. I mean, come on, like, you could just tell Sully was like, you know what, you're making all these decisions on your own. I'm about to make this decision. Sully's decision to kill Jamie will affect Dushane, right? Like, anything Sully does, Dushane is associated. And so as far as Sully is concerned, it's like, you know, we ride together, we die together. And I thought it was very telling that it was Steph who saw Jamie die, because Steph has been lost, right? He lost his friend Ats. He's been kind of wandering all over town with this raggedy little girl. Like, she was so annoying. And so watching his brother die, like, this will give him a sense of purpose, because he's been very lost. And despite all the problems they have, like, they still very much care about Jamie. Like, a lot of the show is dedicated to building up his relationship with his brother. So I suspect Steph will be the reason why Sully and Dushane, you know, unravel. Dushane's goal is to one day have enough, right? One day have enough to finally be content. He's convinced that once they get to the top, once he builds this empire, that no one will stop them. And even if they try, you know, it's like, they'll be able to wipe them out. They'll have the firepower to do it. And as we've seen, like, enough is never enough. The way that this is going to end, either you're going to go to jail or you're going to die. And it seems like the show is leaning towards death, right? Like, somehow Dushane and Sully have avoided jail time. Like, Dushane's face when he realized those drug addicts were actually cops, like, he was just reeling. And as Dushane's empire has expanded, so has his reach. The fact that he could basically threaten Ruben, so their IT guy essentially turned on them. So the police managed to get a source that could very well have thrown Dushane and Sully in jail, but Dushane kind of makes it known that his reach is that big now. Like, he can take this guy's family out regardless of where they are. And again, Dushane has really expanded their world to have that type of reach. Because of that, they've managed to escape authorities, at least for now. But whatever the case, it seems like whatever is going to happen to Dushane and Sully, it's going to happen from within. And this decision to kill Jamie pretty much affects not just Dushane and Sully's lives, but the lives of everyone around them, right? The lives of, you know, Sully's daughter, Dushane's girlfriend. Like, everybody will be wrapped up in this. Like, this turns personal, right? This is no longer business. And considering the number of people who hate Sully, like, I'm not really sure how much longer this friendship can last. This is one of the questions the show asks, is like, is the juice worth the squeeze? Like, is it worth getting to the top and losing everything? And towards the end of the last season, you know, Dushane lost his mother. And the death of his mother greatly affected him, right? Like, he wasn't really on good terms with her towards the end. He really loved his mother. And she kind of says something to him that really hurt his feelings. Like, you used Summer House to, you know, make money, and now you're destroying it to make more money. And the fact that he made the decision towards the end to undo some of the damage that he had done. One of the points that Sully makes time and time again is that everything's about Dushane, right? It's about his stability, it's about his life. But after his mother's death, like, you start to see a subtle shift in terms of how he's thinking about it, right? It started off with Lauren, and now it's kind of expanded to Summer House. And, you know, it's almost impossible to talk about Dushane and Sully's rise and fall without talking about Summer House itself. Neighborhood that is undergoing gentrification, that is changing right before our eyes. Like, when we first see Summer House, I mean, this place looks like a prison, right? Everybody sees everything, but everyone minds their own business. There's all kinds of stuff going on. You see people trying to make it out. And I think one of the most impressive things about the show is the world building. The way they're able to not just focus on this narrative of, you know, these two drug dealers building their empire, but how that affects everybody around them. How some people are able to survive, do well, some people are able to escape, and then some people end up worse off than when they began, right? And I really enjoy the world building around Top Boy, because you kind of come to see directly how Dushane and Sully's actions have had direct consequences to people in this community, right? People that really they have no obligation towards. And it's going to be interesting to see what happens to Summer House itself as Dushane and Sully's empire is sort of crumbling. When the season comes to a close, you know, this whole concept of like Top Boy, like there can only be one Top Boy. And the only thing standing between Dushane and top boy status is his friend Sully. So is he willing to get rid of him to maintain the status, or is he going to go down with the ship? Right? Is he about to go down with his brother and just, that's it? You know, and that's going to be really interesting to watch, because I think at one point Sully says something interesting, like, I never hear my name in anything you say, but trust and believe after Jamie's death, like, his name is going to be all over Dushane, right? Like, at this point in time, there's going to be two camps, and people are going to want his head. And so this concept of loyalty will finally be fully tested, and we're going to see, right, like, what's more important to Dushane, his brother or his empire? And that's going to be fascinating to watch. But what I suspect is that it's all going down, right? Like, the whole thing is burning down to the ground. And again, stories like this, they end in one and two ways, right? You either end up in jail or you end up dead. So you guys let me know what you think, and until next time.